Here to tell us all about that is Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson. Bridget, good morning. Thank you for making it talk today. Glad it's not raining. We've heard snippets of what Starmer's going to say, in fact, most of it. It was 4 years ago today, we know, that Boris Johnson had that seismic landslide majority against Corbyn. And I would absolutely suggest that Keir Starmer's done a very good job in the last 4 years. Has he done a good enough job, despite the psychodrama you allude to convince the British people that he has what it takes?
Well, absolutely. Keir Starmer has turned around the prospects of the Labour Party. We are now back in the service of the British people, focused on what matters most to them, coming back from that devastating result that you just mentioned in 2019. Of course, we take nothing for granted. The only way that we can test that is in the shape of a general election, and I hope that general election comes sooner rather than later, because the country is crying out for change, and wherever I travel, right across the country, people are telling me they want the chance to have their say.
And Bridget, the Labour Party at times has felt almost as fractured as the Tories, particularly when it comes to Israel, Gaza. Is there not a psychodrama happening within your own party?
Well, of course, it's right and proper that within parties that there can sometimes be differences, especially where it comes to such an important issue like Israel and Gaza. It is important that we discuss concerns, that we make sure that we have the right position around it. I do believe that what we've been calling for around the release of Israeli hostages, the need to get more humanitarian aid into Gaza, and our determination to move towards a political process of a two-state solution is absolutely the right way forward. It is horrifying every day to see the death and destruction on our television screens. We all want that to come to an end as soon as possible, but we also desperately want to see the release of the remaining hostages who are being held in Gaza.
Bridget, if I can move it to fiscal policy, I always say when I interview a Labour frontbencher, I was brought up to be told that the Tory party was about low taxation, fiscal responsibility, strong borders and a good military, and yet here we are 13 years down the line, and anybody would agree the highest taxation in 70 years, trillions of pounds in debt, blah, blah, blah. Starmer's made a real point in sending out all his polished performers, you included, I mean that in the best way, talking about how we will not be the Labour Party of old that promised everybody everything. We are about that very fiscal responsibility. He says, and I quote, careful management of taxpayers' money. Can you tell me, does that mean tax cuts, Bridget Phillipson? Does it mean tax cuts for rich people? Because that would be a vote winner.
Well, I am really concerned about the level of taxation on working people. They're the highest they've been for over 70 years. It means people are paying more and more every month, as you described, and there's not really a great deal to show for it when they go to the vital public services on which they depend. For example, trying to get a GP appointment, they'll often find that it's just not available, so they're not really getting much value for what they're putting in at the moment. That's the real challenge that we face. But what we also saw in the terrible mini-budget just last year was what happens when you've got a government that behaves recklessly and in a cavalier manner. So any changes that we want to make around taxation and spending, we will do carefully and thoroughly in line with our fiscal rules, because it's just too serious to get it wrong. And right now, you know, people are paying more every month on their mortgage, or will shortly be paying more every month on their mortgage as fixed rate deals come to an end, because of that reckless approach the Conservatives took over a year ago.
Right on message.
Bridget, later on today we'll have the second reading of the Rwanda Bill. If it does eventually pass early next year and you come into government, Keir Starmer is the leader of the United Kingdom, will he keep the Rwanda policy or will he get rid of it?
Well, I would expect the legislation to pass because the Conservatives have a big majority in Parliament. So it's extraordinary that we're even considering that mightn't be a prospect. But I would expect it to go through because of that majority they enjoy here in Westminster. But we don't believe what the government has set out around Rwanda is the right approach. It won't fix the fundamentals and what needs to be tackled right now. That's more action on the criminal smuggling gangs. It means getting down that backlog of cases and bringing to an end the use of unsuitable accommodation, such as hotels. We're spending £8 million a day
How
as a
are you going to
country
do that,
on
Bridget?
housing people in hotels.
How are the Labour Party, in just a brief... Because that's what the British people want, because they've heard from everybody, stop the boats, stop the boats, stop the boats, 8 million a day. How are the Labour Party going to do that?
No, I understand that. Firstly, by tackling the backlog, processing cases, people who have got a right to be here deserve to have that happen quickly, and those who don't have a right to be here should be removed from the country. Alongside that, more action to tackle the criminal smuggling gangs, so a cross-border policing unit to stop people leaving in the first place. So more action there. If we can get the backlog down, then we won't need to be spending £8 million a day on unsuitable hotels, which is an absolutely scandalous waste of public money. But the cases are just not being processed. It's about fixing the fundamentals, getting the basics right, not these ridiculous gimmicks that we see from the Conservatives like the Rwanda policy.
So just to confirm, if you were to get into power next year, you wouldn't reverse the Rwanda policy?
We wouldn't continue with that policy. Sadly, we're not going to be able to recover all of the money that the Conservatives will have sent to the Rwandan government by that point, in the region currently of about £300 million and rising. So sadly, we can't get that back, but we can stop sending any more money, and we can use that money to tackle criminal smuggling gangs, which I think is the most effective way that we can stop boat crossings.
Bridget, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate
honesty.